I want to start the JobTrac demo off, first of all, in IntelliBid. So if you are using IntelliBid, I'm assuming that you are going to want to bring your job over from IntelliBid. So in this case, this was a Laurel library that I've already done the takeoff on. If I go into my takeoff, you can see that I have a few phases: fixtures, devices, branch, and feeders. I've gone through and I've done takeoff. Once I did the takeoff, I then did the summary, and then I proceeded on into my bid recap. In the bid recap, of course, I went through and I added in any quotes, equipment, subcontracts. I've put in all of my labor and so forth on this particular job, put in my overhead and profit. So everything has been added in. Once I did all of that, I then went back to the top sheet, and from the top sheet is where I went in to submit the bid. The bid has already been frozen and it's already been submitted. I then went back to jobs, and under for this particular jobs, I went down to bidding contractors. I had already added North End Contractor as someone that I was intending to submit a bid to. Once I submitted it, I came back and I put a status of it as 1, and it picked up the amount of what that job was frozen at. And now I am ready to send this job over into IntelliBid. Now I froze it at the amount here, and I also bidding contractor status. The bidding contractor amount could be a little bit different if it was more of a negotiated price. So all of this has been done on the IntelliBid side. There was also some notes I left about this job as I was taking it off. All of this will transfer itself with me when I do go into the JobTrac. So now I'm going to bring up my JobTrac. And once I bring up my JobTrac, you should still be seeing my JobTrac screen. If you are not seeing my JobTrac screen, somebody just send me a chat and let me know, but I think you should still be seeing that screen. Now, once I'm in JobTrac, I've already bought this job over. But the way in which I bought the job over, I simply went up to New Job, and then it showed all of the jobs that were on my computer. And I simply just highlighted a job that I wanted to bring over, and I said yes to activate it. And when I said yes to activate it, it actually bought that job over into my IntelliBid. Okay, so I'm going to say no, since I've already bought over the Laurel library that I wanted to bring over. Once I bring this job over, you're also going to find that, as I said, it bought over that it was a library, the square footage, who was the estimator. If I go to job info, again, it bought in any memo or notes that I had over on the IntelliBid side. And it bought any other information that I may have had about this particular job. So once this job is in, the first thing I want to go is to the bidding info. Very important. Had I had any breakouts on this job, that would have come over with me, or any alternates or anything like that, if I had set all that up when I was in the IntelliBid. But now, since I bought the job over to JobTrac, what I want to do, first of all, I have to set my own contract number. All right. So I'm just going to put this as a contract number 10012. And I make up a contract. Now, the contract amount is very important. I do need something in the contract amount in order to go to my schedule of values. So in this case, I'm actually going to put the exact figure in as it was frozen at. Of course, I could certainly put a different number in as the contract number. If there was more of a negotiated price, I could certainly do that. Any notes that I need to leave about this job, I can certainly do that. So once I've done that, I am then going to go into my schedule of values. I like to go to the schedule of values first, just to make sure that I am in balance. So as I look down here, if these are all a blank line, that means that I am in balance. If I was out of balance, it would show me a particular, I'm out of balance by a couple $100 or whatever the difference was between the estimate and here. But now it's in balance, and you're going to see that it bought over all of the phases as I had taken them off. Now, on this job, when I was in IntelliBid, I did not break it out into buildings or floors or different wings. I just left it all as the phase. But had I broke it out into the different floors and wings, it would have all populated here as well, okay? So now as we look at this, we know that our schedule of values are okay. We know that we're in balance. So then we will come back to that in a bit. So now just a little background information. I'm going to go to maintenance. So before I start to use the JobTrac, a couple of things in maintenance that I probably need to set up, things like my work days. So in my case, the work days are Monday through Friday, 30-minute break. The pay period is weekly. And in my case, the pay period ends on a Thursday. Work day starts at 7 a.m. If there's any additional dates that I want to put in here, I know on Monday I have an upcoming holiday. I could certainly put in the date for that particular holiday so that I don't put someone on a day by mistake. Numbering, this is just the numbering. The job ID is going to automatically create its own job, just like it does in the IntelliBid software. I wanted to create the PO number for me rather than me doing it. I wanted to create the change order number rather than me doing it. Again, any of this information for the receiving slip, I would like to type that in myself because that way I can type the slip in exactly as it is in the package that I receive. And then I always do stock number as well. Miscellaneous, if I do write a change order, do I want it to have an expiration date? I'm going to say automatically apply receive materials to install quantities, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, to allow my spell check. So this is some behind the scenes stuff. Other things that are behind the scenes, my skills. These are the skills that I have in here, and then I would put the regular hours or the pay hours for each of these resources that I'm going to have on the job. So we'll just leave that as is right now. Also, any communication that I'm going to do, this is, if I am writing a change order, this is what I want all that back end stuff to look like as well. So I do want to set that up. And then the last thing in my setup is my resources. Before I start to do anything in the JobTrac, I need to have my resources set up. So I set up the resource, and as I highlight one, this person is set up as a project manager, this person is a foreman, and so forth, because I can then place these folk on a job. So now that we've kind of gone through some of the background stuff, and that was pretty quick, but we can certainly in another session get a little bit more in depth into that. Also, my company's contacts, these are the same company contacts that I had over in IntelliBid. They both use the same database. So now that we've set all that stuff up, again, so we imported a job, new job, we bought the job over, we then went to bidding info, we gave it a contract amount, we gave it a contract amount, a contract number and amount, and of course we said who we were, who the general contractor was that we were in negotiation with. So now we're going to kind of work our way down this sheet here. In the job specifications, this screen just allows me, as the project manager, more things that I want to say, what type of fittings are being used, the wire or cable. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just if you want to be a little bit more detailed about what's being used in the job. My service distribution, again, if you want to put the voltage and all that, you don't have to use this program. It's just to put some extra information in about it that you could certainly do. Now I'm going to go down to schedule. That'll get us into the meat and potatoes of this job. So as I look at this job in my schedule, what's happened here, this is the name of the job, and these are all of the phases that I had in takeoff. These are all the phases. Notice there are no hours being shown yet. So what I need to do in order to get some hours to show for these phases, I am going to click on populate task. When I click on populate task, I can populate task by task or comments or job costs. 99% of the time, I'm just going to do it by task. And actually, I want to start with my devices first. So I'm going to highlight what I want, populate task, and I just click OK. When I click OK, in order for it to bring something in, I am going to click subtotal groups. When I click on subtotal groups, this is what I have available for me in the device phase. I have my work breakdown as rough and finish and test. These are just words. I can certainly call them anything that I want. As I assign these particular items, I get to say whether they're rough, number one, whether it's finish, number two, or whether it's test, number three. So as I'm touring these off, I'm going to say my devices, I'm consider that as my finish, and then miscellaneous items, I'll say that my plate is finished. All this other stuff I would consider as my rough. As I assign that, I then need to check a box that represents number two and check a box that represents number one. And so for this particular installation, I'm going to say for number two, I'm going to assign my devices is probably the most labor and most materials for that. And then for the number one that I have in here, maybe I'm going to put, I'll say my Romex or whatever there. And then I just simply click OK. And then it breaks it down into rough and finish. So in the takeoff and IntelliBid, I had 57.86 labor hours, and then I just broke those hours into rough and finish. So of course, I would go through and I would do all of my phases in this same way. I'm just breaking them out. I click populate task, I click OK, and then I click subtotal groups, and then whatever I want to assign as rough or finish, I can certainly do that. Okay, so I'm just going through making my assignments. So for number one, maybe I'm going to say the EMT is what I want to represent that, and then maybe for the number two, in this case, would be miscellaneous. So again, I'm just breaking out the rough and the finish. Now I can continue to do that for all of my phases. Once I have things taken off or broken out, I want to deal with the devices rough. That is a task. And on that task, I can set up my schedule for that particular task here. So what happens on the rough, I have an early start, a late start, an early finish, and a late finish. So in this example, if I'm saying it starts today and it earliest it can start, latest it can start, and then maybe the latest it could finish is actually tomorrow. So if I go in and I do that, so it goes through and it puts a chart out here, a little Gantt chart out here so that I can see the schedule as I'm doing that. And it's a duration of 1 day, okay? Had I said this task was going to finish on, say, the 28th, it's a 5-day task, actually, but it will not allow me to put anything on the Saturday, Sunday, because it knows those are not work days for me, okay? So again, just some of the things that we can go in to get our schedule set. Once our schedule is set for that particular task, I can now start to populate my resources on that task. So, excuse me, if I want to populate the resources for the rough, I come down here and there's a tab called resources. Once I click on resources, I have 3 types of resources. Is it a labor resource? Is it a tool resource? Or is it a subcontract resource? In this case, it's going to be a labor resource, and I go right here to add resource. When I click on add resource, this came over to another screen. Just want to bring it over here. Hopefully you can see it. It shows a calendar. Is it a single day task or is it a date range? I'm going to say it's a single day. If it was a date range, I would certainly say it starts here and finishes on that particular day. But for this one, I'm just going to say it's a single date for today, and I click next. It then shows me my available resources. These are all the folk I set up under resources. So on this job, maybe I'm going to have a foreman out there. So I'm going to highlight the foreman and I'm going to click finish. And notice it lays that foreman down, in this case, Alan Goodwin, for 8 hours. Maybe I also want an apprentice out there as well. So again, I'm going to click add resource. And it's going to bring up my calendar. If it's just a single day only, I can get next. It brings up my list. So maybe with this one, I'm going to have Mike Jones out there as well. So I'm going to highlight and I'm going to click finish. So it added both of those resources to this job for that date. And if you notice, it has 8 hours and 8 hours here. Okay. So maybe I also want to put some tools so that I know where my tools are. If I go to the Tools tab and I want to add a resource, And this, again, I can choose my date range. It's just today only. And I have my hydraulic bender out there. I've set up a few tools, so I'm going to finish that. And as well, now I know what tools are on my job site and how long and where they are, so that I can also keep track of my tools. So I'm going to go back to my labor. I have my labor out here. So once I've set these up, again, it's up to me if I'm going to set them all up at once, and maybe I'm not. If some of these things are not happening to several months away, or however I intend to do that. But right now I have my rough. So on the rough, I am going to go over here to my job cost, just so that we can see that. So if I go to my job cost report, and under the job cost, under the usage report, you can see that it shows the two resources that I have on here for labor. Now, one of the things that I may want to do, notice there are no hours here, it just shows the name. All I need to do is click in any of these fields and it'll populate it with the 8 and the time in and the time out. Now, maybe on this particular job, Alan Goodwin, my foreman, is not going to be out there a whole day. Maybe he's only going to be out there half a day. So I can certainly change those 8 hours to become 4. So now it's only 12 hours that will be written to this job, will be the 12 hours. Or if I have a situation where someone is coming in at 7 and they're going to leave at noon or something like that, I can certainly change that just by dropping that down if I needed to. Does that make sense? So again, you get to put the and as I change the time, it will automatically change the hours. But for right now, for my apprentice, I'm going to keep them at the 8 hours. And then for my foreman, I'll just have him out there 4 hours, because maybe I need to put him on another job for the remainder of the day. So I can go in and I can put my hours. I can also see all the materials that are on this job. These are the materials that came over from the bid, from the estimate rather. Now, once I go in here, if I go back to my labor cost, what we see now, this is my job, Laurel Library, and these are the labor and materials. This is the budget, which came over from the IntelliBid with my estimate, and then here are my actuals. Right now, I have 12 hours written to that at this point. I really have not done any projections or anything at this point, so again, it's just showing what I have for labor and what I have for material, overhead, and tax, and so forth. So now that I have all that set up, I'm just going to come down the list here. I have my schedule set up. If there's any submittals I need to write, I can certainly do that. I can add another submittal package here just simply by clicking on add submittal, and whatever that submittal is, I can put that in. If it's a fixtures or whatever, I can put the date that it needs to be here, the drop dead date that I just have to have it, who submitted it, it was submitted, or on what date it was actually submitted, if it was approved, submitted by a vendor, and so forth. If I want to add a cut sheet or the actual thing to it, I can certainly click the plus right here. And then I can just start to add, maybe this is my cut sheet or whatever I have, fill all this information in. Now, in order for me to bring in that physical sheet, I can go here to the cut sheet and just go out to my database, to my wherever that sheet happens to be, and bring it in so that it becomes part of it. Okay. Now, submittals are out. Now let's talk about purchasing. On my job, for this particular job, I want to create build a PO. So the first thing I'm going to do now is go over to my purchasing, and I want to do a new purchase order. So if I click on new purchase order, I had the job to automatically set it. So what vendor am I using? These are the vendors that I have choices. I'll say standard supply, and then there is the job, and I simply click OK. So once I click OK, it creates that. I had it to automatically set the PO number for me, the date it was ordered, and so forth. At the bottom portion of the screen, I have a lot of tabs down here. In the General tab, this is where I get to choose any payment terms, order by, maybe I'm the one doing the ordering, or whoever had to authorize it. I can certainly put who I authorized this, ship via. Ship via, in this case, I want the vendor to deliver it. Date ordered is today. Is there a particular date that it's required? I'll just say today for sake of example, if this job was further out these days, of course. And special instruction, this is more special instruction. So when they do deliver, do they need to go through the gate and talk to the guard and press this? That just allows them what needs to happen. Before I come to items, ship, bill. So where do I want the materials to go? To the job site, or do I want to come back in-house to my warehouse? I'm just going to allow it to go out to my job site. Bill 2, this is my company, Continental Electric. Any attention, so when they get the bill, they know it's coming to. Inventory status. Inventory just means if you really have an inventory at your office and you close down, you know, one Saturday and everybody's there counting nuts and bolts, and when someone takes something out, it's written down and all that. Most companies are not doing that, but that's what the inventory status kind of means. If you have a sheet with all of your items that you can pull from. Assigned vendor. So assign all to, again, I'm just going to go ahead and do standard supply. Now I'm going to go back to items and I'm ready to do my purchase order. Very important. Notice your item list for the task. It says all tasks. I am not going to purchase this entire job on one PO or all at once. Remember, I have it broken down. So I'm going to drop down list items for tasks, and I was doing the devices. That's what I want to purchase. So now it only shows me what was part of that device particular phase. Had I broken it out into device first floor east, then I would choose, you know, just that. But in this case, it's the devices. So now as I start to look at this, my budget is what was on the actual estimate. There's nothing back ordered. There's nothing that been previously installed, any of that. So what I'm going to do now for this PO, and this is kind of a manual piece. I had 40 on there, and I'm going to tell it that I want 40. So again, I'm just going through and putting the quantities on the PO that I want to purchase, okay? And of course, maybe I don't want all of the wire or all of that laying out on my job site for that little time. So I don't have to order all of it if I did not want to order it. So I'm just going to go through, put a few values on here so that I have something that I'm purchasing, okay? So I go through and I put some things there. Once I put some things here, I have a choice down here. I can either submit this, or maybe there's something that I need that's not on this list. Remember, this list came over from estimating. So if there's something that I need to be part of this PO that's not on this list, that's where the add material. So add material, I can manually type it in, or I can use the item database. The item database is the same exact database that you use over in IntelliBid. It's the same database. So if I need to add something to this PO that was not already part of that device phase, I can certainly go down and pick up whatever it is that I need. I click OK, and for whatever reason, it should have picked up those boxes, and I can put in now a quantity on those. I need 2 of those. So it just allows me to pick up stuff, or I could have added manual items as well. In other words, I get to put what this little widget or whatever I need. So I could just type it in as something that I need, okay? So now that I have some items on here and I've decided what I want on this particular PO, I have the opportunity now to submit this PO. So if I submit the PO now, when this comes up, are you sure you want to submit this purchase order? I do. One of the things that I would never do is show prices. I don't want standard supply or whoever my vendor is to see the prices that's on this PO. So I'm going to say hide the pricing because I don't want them to see that. And then I'm simply going to say just print preview, and that way it'll come up to the screen and we can kind of see what that purchase order will look like. So when the purchase order comes up, this is basically, this is me, this is who it's going to, purchase order PO1, today's date, the name of the job, and these are the items that I had on there. And there are those 2 extra boxes that I said I wanted on there Okay, so however I'm going to get this out, I can make a PDF out of it and email it. I could send it to Microsoft Excel or Word and email it to them, however I'm going to do it, or I can do it the old-fashioned way and print it and fax it. Either way, the PO has gone out to Standard Supply. So now on the job site, once I get those values back in, I need to say that I've received those. A couple of ways that you can do this: if you're using JT Mobile out in the field, you could receive out there, or the person can receive and then let you know if I am the purchasing agent in-house. So in order to receive these, I was in purchasing to create the PO, but in order to receive it, that's under inventory. So when I go into inventory, inventory allows me to do receiving. So when I do receiving, I only have this one PO up here. And down if I look at my items, this is what I have on the PO. Okay, I can look at the ship bills, just the visual of what that was. So here's what's on the PO and what I've ordered. Now, what I can do here, this is the receive. Rather than me typing in, I did receive 40, I did receive 40, I did receive these two, rather than me typing that in, the easier, quicker way would be for me to click on pre-fill receive quantity. Pre-fill receive quantity. So I'm going to click that, and then it populates those values for me that what was on the order. Now, if I did not receive all of them that I wanted, this is where I can go in and change the quantities here. If I needed to change the quantity on something, I wanted 40 of them, and maybe in the packing slip, in the package, I only opened them up and there was only 38 of them or 28 of them for whatever reason. So that means I can certainly order those on one of my next POs if they're not there. Okay, so these numbers I click pre-fill to pre-fill them, and then I can go in to change whatever it is I need to do. Once I do that, I am then going to click the receive button. This receive button, it just puts it into a different stack so that I know what's all been received and what all has not been received. So I'm going to say I have received the things on this PO. I'm going to click receive. It allows me to choose the date that I received them. Maybe the foreman out in the field, for example, maybe they received these last Friday, but I'm just getting the notice and I'm just getting around to doing the actual receivers today. So I can choose a date and then the slip number. I opted not to let JobTrac put the number in because I want to put whatever the number is that's on that sheet. So maybe standards number, they put S for that, and it's 223. That was the slip number on that here, because again, that slip may eventually need to go into accounting and so forth for payment. So I'm going to click OK there. Now it says the receiving slip has been logged. Do you want to print the slip? Typically, I do not print the slip. It's just a picture of what the slip will look like. But for this session, I'll go ahead and click it just so that you can see it's just a receiving slip and it shows all those items on it. Maybe you do need to print it and save it somewhere, or send it over to county, but that's basically what it will look like. Okay. So now, once I've done my receiving and everything on here, as I go back to my purchasing, when I go into go down here to purchasing and items, again, where is that? It was under devices. So that's where it is over here under here, okay? So now I'm still looking at all POs. If I had any closed or anything still open, I can certainly do that. So again, if I go back to purchase order and I need to write a new PO, I certainly click that. It's automatically numbered. It is the same exact job. I drop down, I go to whatever task it is that I still need to purchase. And now as I look at this on this particular PO here, I can see what's been ordered, and if installed also, that will make it right to the job. It automatically did that when I received it. Anything back ordered, there are the other 12 devices that I still need. So maybe on this PO, I want the additional 12 devices, so I can certainly do that. I can then submit this PO here as well. Again, I'm going to hide the prices. I will print it. And on this case, I should only see just that one item on there, and that's all I see is that one device there that I've ordered. Again, I can go back now to my inventory and I can say that I have received this one. I highlight this one. If I did receive it, I'm going to pre-fill my received quantity, and then I'm going to put it in the stack and say, yes, I did receive that one on that particular number. And now everything, I'm not going to print it that time. Okay. Now it says, do you want to close this purchase order? Very important. Closing a PO indicates that you are through adding and or receiving items for this PO. If you intend to add more materials or are expecting further shipments for this supplier, you should not close it until all business relating to this PO is complete. So again, if you think there is something, or I didn't get this all of a sudden, you know, I can say no, because I can come back and close it at any point in time. Okay, so now I go through my receiving. Again, I don't really have inventory. Inventory is pretty much if I have some things in my inventory that I pull from. Okay, and so once I go to that, I'm now going to go down into my schedule of value so we can talk a little bit about what happens in the schedule of value. So we were here when we first bought the job over. We made sure that we were in balance, and we are, because if it was out of balance, it would have a negative number or positive number down here. Now, when we come over into our schedule of values, these are the phases that we had over in the IntelliBid. Any quotes came over with us, any equipment, subcontracts that we may have had set up, all of that has come over with us. Now, as I go to my calculation sheet, this is going to be my worksheet, okay? So this is my worksheet. Now, I can either type the percent complete in here, or maybe the percent complete has come from the field. So when I was here for the task, and let's say as the PM, maybe I'm the project manager and I walk the job site and I am going to say for this device task, remember I need to make sure I'm in the right one. And for this device task, if I just say it's 40% complete, I type in 40 right there, and who's ever responsible for that 40%. When I put the 40% in, that 40% is now showing up here, and it's showing me this is the PM projection, and this is showing that these device phase is 12% of the job completed. So now when I go into my schedule of value and I go into my calculation sheet, if you look at the device, it picks up the 40%. Okay, and so 40% means of that device total, I can now bill for $2,061 of that because I've completed 40%. Okay, so I can continue to do this. Now, on my very first pay app, maybe my pay period is at the 30th of every month or at the end of the month. You can certainly change those. Now, on my very first pay period, or on any payment, I want to be able to bill for as much as I possibly can. So in order for me to bill for as much as I possibly can, there are other things that I can do. I could add in a new line item down here for mobilization and throw, you know, $5,000 on that so I could bill for that. Or maybe in this case, my fixtures, maybe those fixtures I've already received all the fixture package in, and I want to be able to bill for that. So on the fixtures, maybe I could put that as 100% complete, even though I haven't installed them. I'm just saying I received them, and my vendor wants their money. It just allows me to be able to bill for that. So again, I can kind of play around with some of the numbers here so that I can better be able to bill whatever it is I want to bill on that particular pay app. So in this case, I am going to bill for this amount of money. I have everything set up. If there was any retainage on the job that needed to be backed out of the job, I could certainly set up my retainage on here as well as I'm going through. And generally, I don't think you have an opportunity to put the retainage in on the IntelliBid when you take it off, but you can certainly put it in over here as you go through it. So maybe in this example, I'm going to say on this job, there is some retainage, and I'm just going to click that, and maybe I have maybe the first 10% of the job is at 50%. So I'll say maybe the first 10% of the job, the retainage is going to be at 50% of the job. And then maybe I'll say 2% will be the other 50% of the job. Okay, just throwing some numbers in. And so now that I do that, I've set up my sheet, I've put what I can bill for. Now I'm going to move into my application for payment. When I go into my application for payment, basically this is just reporting back to me. Pay app number 1, original contract amount was the $34,600. Net change orders, I didn't have any change orders, so there's nothing there. Had I had some change orders in IntelliBid, they would come over. Contract sum to date, same thing, total completed and stored, the $2,061. Here is the retainage that is going to the total retainage. So it's the total earned less the retainage. It pulls that out. And then this is what I can bill for the $1,855. And then it shows me my balance to finish. So if I'm done and I say everything looks okay, I can simply say accept application. It gives me a message. Well, before I accept it, maybe I need to print it out first. I'm going to go here and I'm just going to do an application for payment. When I do the application for payment, again, this is just a AIA document here. It has everything on it that we need to see. There were no change orders, the job, and basically here's everything for my general contractor, whoever I'm submitting this to. So on this case, once I submit this, I'm going to accept it. And it tells me accepting will complete the application and no further changes can be done. Do you want to continue? I'm going to say yes. And do I want to print it? I'm going to say no. We know what it looks like. So in that message that said, if I accept it, no other changes can be made, that's not exactly true. Changes can be made. If all of a sudden I did send that pay app to the owner or the GC and they don't agree with it for whatever, they're saying, no, you're not 40% done, you're only 30% done. I can reject this. So if I click reject application, rejecting the application allows you to edit and resubmit the application. Do you want to continue? I'm going to say yes. So once I say yes, maybe I need to go back to this calculation sheet. And over here, maybe we were not in agreement. It's only 30%. And so I can now change that, and then my pay application will then reflect only that it was 30% complete unless it's not. So I go over here, and that's the way I'm going to continue to do my billing. If I want to do the second pay app, I simply just click on the new application. It automatically gives it number 2, and again, I can go in and fill in here. So maybe on this second application, maybe now I'm up to 70% or whatever that I want to bill for that. So that's how I go back and forth. Now, change orders. How do we handle change orders? Over here, I have 2 ways. Some people will go back to IntelliBid and create the change order, and then it will appear over here. If I do the change order on this side in JobTrac, when I go to change order, I click on change order, and then I simply click new. So now my description on this change order, maybe they need some additional devices is what they needed. And this is just like a blanket change order. I could put the amount. So these additional devices or whatever that they wanted and for installation and all of that, let's say it's another $850. I don't get the opportunity to add the individual items. Now, but what is nice about it, if I do a change order on this side, add change order to IntelliBid. Okay, it says change orders added to IntelliBid are not included in the JobTrac until a bid is frozen. So if I say add it to IntelliBid, it will then send that over into IntelliBid. Okay, and so where it says bid name, change order bid, maybe I'm just going to call this change order number 1 as my bid name. So in this case, I'm saying I created over here. Before I send it to IntelliBid, I need to put it won't allow me to put that amount and send it to IntelliBid. So if I put the change order there, put the amount. So in this case, if I'm saying sending it to IntelliBid, it assumes I'm going to go over into IntelliBid and actually do the takeoff for that change order. And I certainly could go over into IntelliBid and probably refresh my screen over here. And now if you look at the Laurel job, it's bolded in black, which tells me that it has a change order on it. So there's that change order. So now I could actually, I created it in IntelliBid, and I'm sorry, I created it in JobTrac, and then I sent it over into IntelliBid. And then if I wanted to go off and go in here and take off those additional devices that they want, I can certainly do it like that. And then it would read over again into my JobTrac. Okay, so again, just some other changes, some things that you can certainly do in here if you want to take it off here. Or I could have 7 of them, or I could have set them up in IntelliBid in the beginning, and then they would have all transferred over into the JobTrac. Okay, so it depends on how it is you want to do the jobs, or how you want to see these things as they will show out and so forth. But you can certainly go in and add your change orders and so forth as we do the job, as we set anything up over here. Okay. All the other stuff, again, the maintenance, we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, how you first need to setting up your skills. You want to set up, if you have something else in here as a skill that you want to put in, you simply just use a plus to add it. And that's where you would put the regular pay for there, and then the overtime pay. Pending rates, if I have my apprentice and so forth set to a certain rate, but if I say on July the 1st, they're going to get a new regular rate. So maybe the rate that's going to be an increase, I can certainly include that increase as well. And then it's a show. These are just words. I can call them whatever I want to call them. So I need to set my skills up first before I set up my resources, because when I set up my resources, it needs to know what that skill set is for that particular resource. To add in a new labor resource, I simply click add, and I just type in a name here. I put in a first name and a last name, employee ID. It wants something on that line, whatever your ID is, and now I get to say what type of person that they are. Maybe this is my helper. When I do that, that means they are available to be part of a job when I go through to add task to my particular job. Okay. The JobTrac is a very robust, it's an extremely large piece of software. If you are going to use it, you have to decide, how do you want to use it at this point? Am I going in pretty much to just write POs? Is that all I want to do and receive? Or am I trying to track the job, set up the schedule and tracking my labor hours and materials? Am I on point with where I should be? Again, so people use this program so differently. And so those some of the things you want to ask yourself before you start to take it on, because it is extremely robust. But whatever you do, you probably, one of the first things you do want to do is go to your preferences and make sure that you get your work days, make sure you get your pay period and all that information straight. Make sure you get your numbering. Do you want JobTrac to number things, or do you want to number things yourself? Okay. So that's how the program works. That's all the content that I want to share in this basic training. Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask? You can unmute yourself and ask, or you can certainly send over a chat if you have any messages, or I'm sorry, any questions that you want to look at. If you want to look at something a little bit closer, you can certainly give us a call and we can schedule a one-on-one training with you and your company if you choose to do it in that way. So any questions? Anyone have any questions?